Ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished guests, it's my pleasure to start this second panel, which topic is Slovak-African Development Cooperation, Past and Future. We would like to focus especially for the future of Slovak-African cooperation, but let me start with one personal reflection to the past. My name is Marian Čaučík. I have been NGO person for almost all my professional life, and in 1995 we started a Christmas campaign of Slovak children who are singing carols and fundraising for development projects. Our first project has been in Kenya, Nairobi. We contributed to Mukuru Promotion Center, and then in 1998 it was my first personal touch with Africa. I went for 1 month trip to Uganda, Kenya and South Sudan, the region of South Sudan even at that time. At that time I met our ambassador in Nairobi and to inform him about our activities, but I would never think that Kenya will be one time on the priority list as a program country, on the priority list of Slovak development assistance, and then 10 years after we can really sit here and discuss our partnership, Slovak-Kenyan partnership, in such a great panel. Since the 10 years I have been involved in development NGOs, I have never experienced such good panel of people who are very, very experienced to this topic that we have here today. So it's my pleasure to welcome you here. I would like to welcome Honorable Amina Mohamed, Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and International Trade of Republic of Kenya. Prior to her appointment as a Cabinet Secretary, she has been serving as United Nations Environment Programme Deputy Executive Director. And before joining UNEP, Ms. Mohamed served as the Permanent Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of Ministry of Justice, National Cohesion and Constitutional Affairs of the Republic of Kenya. Under her leadership, the Ministry of Justice implemented political, legal and constitutional reforms. Karibu sana, biwaziri, nashukuru sana kwa politiki ya wito na kuungana nasi Slovakia. Jisikie nyumbani, karibu tena. Most welcome and feel at home. It's my pleasure to introduce Commissioner Andris Piebalgs, European Commissioner for Development. Mr. Piebalgs previously served as a European Commissioner for Energy. Before joining European Commission, Mr. Piebalgs was an active politician and diplomat who contributed to the approximation of Latvia to European Union. He was a member of the first independent government as a Minister of Education and later on Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. At the time, he also established the new development assistance policy for Latvia. Thanks and most welcome, Commissioner. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Serge Tomasi, Deputy Director of OECD Development Cooperation Directorate. Mr. Tomasi is also in charge of the G20 Development Working Group and the Green Growth and Climate Change Agenda regarding developing countries. Mr. Tomasi has devoted his career to international cooperation. He was the Director for Global Economy and Development at the French Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. After several positions in French Ministry of Finance and the French Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. Welcome. And finally, Mr. Peter Burian, who joined our panel, who is the State Secretary of Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of the Slovak Republic. Mr. Burian has lifetime experience in the field of diplomacy as well as domestic politics. He worked for diplomatic missions in Lebanon, later on at the Embassy of Slovak Republic in Washington, where he became in 2008 Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary. In 1999, he was the head of Slovakia's mission to NATO and to Western European Union in Brussels. And from 2004-2008, he was appointed to Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary permanent representative of Slovakia to the United Nations. Thank you for accepting to be here in the panel, and also thanks to MFA for hosting this great event. Now I would like to give you the floor for the first opening remarks, and I would like to add one question to it. Maybe you could reflect why it is important for a small European country like Slovakia to have partners in Africa. Where do you see the benefits of this? And especially maybe in a time of economic and financial crisis, where it is quite difficult in domestic politics to speak about development cooperation, development assistance, financial contribution to that. Where do you see the importance, especially of bilateral partnerships of countries like Slovakia with African partners? And what would be a message to our public in this? Vasily, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, especially for the wonderful words that you welcomed me with in Kiswahili. It made me feel as if I hadn't even left Nairobi, and as if we were sitting right in the middle of my country having this panel discussion. But let me begin by just appreciating the presence of the Commissioner Pierre-Barks, the Honorable Minister Burian, who we in Kenya are very fond of after his visit to our country, and to Mr. Tomasi, who I think I'm meeting for the second time. But just to say that I'm extremely delighted to be part of this panel. Allow me also to thank the government and the people of this really great country for the warm welcome that was extended to me and to my delegation that's here today, since we came in to participate in celebrating 10 years of SlovakAid. We in Kenya don't see Slovakia as a small country. We see it as a big country with an even bigger heart. We've had a relationship for a very long time. Your civil society organizations, your NGOs, have been operating in my country for a long time, and they are quite well respected. They are, well regarded. They have carried out extremely well-received projects in many parts of the country. And as you yourselves heard, when the foreign minister was speaking, he was able to pronounce all these wonderful names of cities and towns in Kenya without even stopping for breath, which basically meant that it's something that has been going on for a long time. And so the names sounded very familiar, and we're really very, very grateful for that. Let me say that, and claim credit for it, that Kenya was actually one of the countries that I was among the first to recognize the Slovak Republic when it peacefully, broke away. So from that time, from 1993, we've actually had very close relations. In 2004, we established diplomatic relations and had our first ambassador from Slovakia soon thereafter. And I think from that time, the relationship that we'd had with the NGOs operating in Kenya was taken to a higher level. We are one of the biggest recipients of SlovakAid, and I had some of the questions that were asked earlier on, and maybe we'll get back to them on the importance or otherwise of development assistance and aid. As I think you heard this morning, we are one of the 4 countries where you have resident diplomatic mission. And I think for us, the Slovak ambassador to Kenya has become a very common feature of the country. Basically, any time that we're talking about development assistance, anytime that we are talking about how countries transition from one level of development to the other. He's been present and very, very supportive. He has a small team in Nairobi, but it's been one of the most effective and the most active that we have in the country. Has aid been this support that we've been receiving been effective? I would argue that has been very, very effective. In fact, just now I was standing with a gentleman who actually started a health clinic a few years ago and is already moving into the third phase of that health clinic in a part of the country that the government would not have reached. The government would not have been able to provide these services in that part of the country. Actually, it's the poorer parts of the country that Slovak NGOs went into. So the assistance that we received was targeted, and it was focused on achieving certain results, which were achieved, and that's why now in Mukuini, for instance, with the health clinic, it can be moved to the next phase and the next one because of how effective it has been. So aid is effective if it's targeted, if it's focused, if it actually meets the demands that are set and the requirements of the country, the countries that receive the aid. And also if it goes to communities where otherwise the government would not have been with its limited resources able to penetrate. So for us in Kenya, the support has gone to health services, to education services, agricultural services. It has been part of the, as far as education services are concerned, we received scholarships, and we have been requesting for additional scholarships because the number that we have received, Mr. Minister, has been very, very effective. We have seen, Kenyan postgraduate students coming back and doing an excellent job. We've also had your doctors coming to our countries and, supporting, the carrying out of, for instance, surgery, cardiac surgery. We had 40 doctors from the Czech Republic and Slovakia in one of our hospitals, carrying this out for free, and obviously, again, targeted at the poorer parts of the community. So we're hoping that, in fact, those are the areas in which, the support can continue to grow. I'll just tell you about, I think 3 of the projects, because even for me, some of them were a surprise, because I have been doing this work not for too long. And so when I heard of some of the projects, I was really pleasantly surprised. One of them is a maggot debridement therapy project, and it's under the Kenya Agricultural Research Institute. It involves the use of sterile larvae of certain flies to clean and disinfect wounds to promote faster healing of chronic wounds in livestock. Now, we are a livestock country, and parts of the country are so dry that that's the only thing that we can do. And so for us, until this project was initiated, we had a problem with livestock, the diseases and the wounds that resulted from the diseases they suffered from. So this is a very, very good project that will actually be able to respond to a need that is there, a real need that is actually there. And then, of course, there are other projects that the provision, for instance, of annual free medical services by the surgeons, which I referred to. That's also one that is targeted to meeting a special need. Now, I think where do we go from here is the other question. I think it's long-term. I think our relationship with the Slovak Republic and Slovak NGOs is going to be a long-term one. It's been there since 1993, and I think it will go on for a long time. Africa is growing. It's part of the world that is growing the fastest. In Kenya, for instance, we've been able to very recently discover large deposits of oil, large deposits of minerals, copper, coal, and others, and a large lake of fresh water. right? So apart from the other natural resources, we actually have fresh water that needs, and these reserves need to be developed. They need to be exploited, they need to be developed, and they need to be made to contribute to our national growth and development. And so these are areas in which we will be talking to the Slovak government to see that, we can enter into joint ventures, that we can seek their support, we can invite their businesses to come in and support our own national development programs. But also, the small grants that were given to start businesses in some parts of the country, and those parts of the country were very eloquently explained this morning. Those could grow. They could grow actually into joint venture enterprises, and I think that's how you turn around an economy from small and medium, size enterprises. So we're really, really hopeful, going forward, that we'll be able to take this relationship to the next level in the same way that the health clinic has gone through phases of development. I think our relationship is just at the beginning, and I think it's a dynamic relationship. It's going to be a very positive contributor to our national development, but I think it's also going to support, the relationship in other ways. It's going to be a win-win situation where your businesses actually come in and make a contribution not only in Kenya, but also in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Commissioner, please.
Honorable Cabinet Secretary actually answered the question from what I would like, but I will try rephrase what Cabinet Secretary said. Why for Slovakia it's important to work with African countries and also in Africa. First of all, African countries today is deciding also international agenda. If I say United Nations, well, it will be 25% of all the countries represented are African countries. If I see the global challenges, fighting climate change, or more sad event, fighting terrorism, Kenya is involved in fighting in all the areas. And I believe from the point of view of national interest of Slovakia, definitely is a huge political interest to work with governments of African countries. Because only in this way we could establish the world that is free of conflicts, free of terrorism, and prosperous world. So I think it is very clear that it is political imperative for European countries, even for the countries that have been less exposed to African continents in the past. And I have seen, for example, remarkable change already in Poland, and I'm very glad that Slovakia is, I would say, second from Eastern European countries, very much starting to focus on African continent, because European future is very much connected with African continent. There is no difference in it. I believe what Amin also very elegantly mentioned, it is prosperity issue. Because African continent is growing. It's growing with a lot of challenges related. It's most importantly, it is young people that are coming to labor market. How you can accommodate them in labor market? I assume it is with services most. But for services you need education, you need also technology, and you need also money in it. And I believe the European continent is actually well supplied with those three elements that really to make a difference in our partner countries, but not for the charity, for mutual profit actually. And that I think is a philosophy that we really need to get more and more to develop and to explain to our citizens that it is crucial for our own prosperity to work with African countries. Definitely it would make that Slovakia has some limited size. You need to make a choice. You can't work with all African countries. So that's definitely is clear. But I mean also the Cabinet Secretary presence here in Slovakia is very clear indications that Kenyan government also would like to work with Slovakia. So please use this chance. And I think it is an important chance given. Because Kenya is the most dynamic African country with, I would say, an economic development, or one of most, so no one could feel that I offended, but it's if I see the growth figures, if I see access to energy, if I see actually the market reforms, definitely it's a country where the fastest profit you can make. That's very clear as well. But it requires investment and work. Now I will come to my business. What is my business in development aid? And I think we are now in the watershed. We are trying to change the philosophy of it, and it's challenging. Basically, for a long time, our philosophy with African continent, particularly with sub-Saharan Africa, was to alleviate poverty. So it's basically to come to provide some services through the governments or through NGOs to give some access to education, some access to health, and, well, not really believing that the countries could deal with the issues. And today there have been a change of mind. Governments are trying really to take all the social services provision under their wing. But there is challenges, as I mentioned, for example, of growth and also of incomes. And I believe at this situation we should somehow try to develop the strategies that focuses on the areas that could help the countries to sustain the growth or increase the growth. And I see in the current philosophy two particular sectors that our grant support could be very, very crucial. One, it is agriculture, food security, nutrition. The challenge with the agricultural sector, particularly in Africa, but anywhere, is access to finance. Access to finance that is very difficult to establish through the banks because it's seasonal, incomes are fluctuating, and it's a lot of smallholder farmers. So basically, investment needs are huge, but the money supply is very low. So what we are trying now in most of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa to try to use it as a focal sector, still understanding that it will be different actions. In some places it will be rural feeder roads, in some sector places it will be irrigation, in some sectors something different, but very much under the country strategy in it. And second is access to energy, and that I think where Kenya is making the biggest progress. Access, for example, for thermal energy, that is, I think that's the only countries that made a breakthrough. It's plenty of countries have this potential all across the world, but the only countries as the new capacities came and outstream is Kenya. The same with wind energy. And I think we have a chance really to make a long-run blending or provide technical assistance that this process doesn't stay only with Kenya but some other countries again. Because without energy, the countries has a real challenge. I would mention Burundi, for example. In Burundi, people are living from agriculture. The problem is that number of population is increasing and the plots are getting smaller. The only way is really to reprocess what is being produced because it creates jobs and it creates a growth as well. At the same time, without access to energy, it's impossible. But Burundi is small and it is a poor country. So the loans is not the way forward, or not the only way forward. So the grants could make the difference. So I just mentioned this philosophy change, really support African growth for African people. That is a main point of our interest. I'm not shying away from other issues like support to governance, support to human development, support to peace and security. That should be done. It's not a question about it. But I think the philosophy change is really to help African countries to move through transitional phase as smoothly as possible, as short time as possible. And for this we have, first of all, this 4 billion euro a year that we have in grants. And we spend such money that we disburse, and we will have more. It's only through EU Commission, but if I would say member states, it could be roughly 10 billion euro grants. And it's quite a lot of money, actually, if I'm saying that it's grants. In loans, it would be different. But in grants, if it used strategically, it could make a difference. Second, Amina is a trade expert. I'm very glad that she didn't spoke about the trade. But my point is that trade is crucial for development. And in this respect, this policy coherence for development that we are moving with new level, I think could make a difference. I was very glad that European Parliament, for example, recently approved a new fisheries partnership agreement with Mauritania, against opposition of some Europeans against it. And it was, for me, it was watershed that we look at the instruments that we have outside the just development aid in coherence, what impact it will make for partners, but also for us, because we have an interest of the growth also in the fisheries sector in Mauritania. And the third is so-called joint programming. European Union channels the money not only through the European Commission. Actually, through European Commission, we have 15 to 18% of our grants. Most of the money goes through member states. But if you just make a coordination, it will not make additional value. Because what we have committed under Busan, that we work under the leadership of country national development strategy, and we actually need to plan our activities ex ante, not really ex post. And that would mean this joint programming that we adapt our development frameworks with a country development pace. And only in this way we can have catalytic change that we would like to have an impact. So I believe that development aid still has a role to play. It's quite crucial role, but it's not any more charity aid. It is more strategic aid. Last that I know that a lot of NGOs are sitting here and saying, well, what for us? No, you are doing fantastic work. I spoke about government funds because I believe that the support from NGOs all across the world, it's not only about Africa, it's crucial because there are always marginalized groups. There are always people that you need to reach and you can't reach for whatever reason. So you are doing a fantastic job, but what I talk, it is a macro level that we nearly need to do things right, and I believe we have a good chance to do things right. And to strengthen what we try to achieve, I wish all the success on this post-2015 policy. MDG policy was right for its time, address extreme poverty. Now people ask more. People ask for jobs, for prosperity, to access to judicial institutions, so its demands are quite high all across the world. And that means that the agenda should reflect on it and respond to it, and not to forget that we have sustainability issues, particularly climate changes that makes a global impact and should be addressed globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you very much. Slovakia just recently has become a member of OECD DAC, so I think it's very, very timely. Mr. Tomasi, you came in. Please, can you tell us how you see the membership of Slovakia in OECD DAC and the implications and both sides partnerships? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And let me start. I would like to thank the Slovak government for its kind invitations to attend this meeting. It's really a pleasure for me to be in Bratislava for this 10th anniversary of the development cooperation policy. Of course, in the Secretariat of the DAC, we are committed to promote development cooperations. Therefore, I am very, very happy, and I would like to wish you an excellent 10th anniversary. Indeed, the Slovak government joined the DAC. We were in Paris a few weeks ago for these accessions, and it's an important step, I think, because it is a recognition of the efforts that you have done to increase the volume of your ODA, because your ODA has tripled since 24 to reach $80 million US. It is also a recognition of the efforts that you have done to put in place a legal and strategic framework for the development cooperations, and also for your efforts regarding the development of an evaluation policy. And I hope that you could benefit from these DAC accessions, because in principle it should enhance your credibility and visibility at the international level, and I hope you could benefit from the support, the technical support of the Secretariat, but also you could benefit from the experience of the other DAC members through this powerful system of peer review. So peer review are important. You know that every 4 years we have a peer review of the national development cooperation policy of each DAC members. And it is a powerful system to learn from each other and to improve the efficiency of our policy, both for the country under review and for the other DAC members. And last but not least, I hope that the fact to be a member of the DAC will create incentives to increase again and to move in, to increase your ODA and to improve the efficiency of your development cooperation policy. And I hope that also it will be benefit for the DAC, because you have a lot of to bring into the DAC. Mainly, I will highlight 2 points. One, it is your experience regarding economic and political transitions, clearly. I was very impressed by the first panel and the consistency among the speakers regarding this added value of the SlovakAid regarding the knowledge and experience regarding transitions. And development, the development process is a transformative process. So you have a key role to play. And I think also, just I would like to highlight the second comparative advantages for me from the DAC perspective. It is your experience with these regions, with the Balkan regions and the Eastern European countries. Because it's true that within the DAC, we don't have so many members with a long experience with these regions. The traditional donors are very focused on Africa, Latin America, and Asia. Now, just a few words regarding Africa and why it is important for new DAC members to be committed to the development of Africa. I will start by highlighting that Slovak Republic is a member of the EU, and Africa is a close partner of the EU. I don't think that we could ignore the Africa, because Africa is a big continent with a huge population growth, with some problems, including some conflicts, with the problem of migrants. We can see the situation, the difficult situation is Mediterranean. But Africa is also a continent with huge opportunities. Africa growth over the last 10 years is around 6% per year. You have several countries with an economic growth of around 10 or 11% per year. Ethiopia, that is LDCs. The economic growth in Ethiopia over the last 5 years was around 11% per year. And there is an emerging middle class in Africa. There is a huge development of access to international and to communications and tools and technologies. There is a need for economic transitions, political transitions, to improve the business environment. And if we look over the post-2015 agenda, with this idea, I think we will have a consensus about the ideas that we have to end by 2013 to end absolute poverty. There is a specific challenge in Africa because it is the only regions over the last 20 years where you have been an increase of the absolute number of people living in absolute poverty. Therefore, there is a special attention to pay to Africa if we want to achieve the MDGs and to reach this objective of ending absolute poverty. And also, if you look at the results in terms of the MDGs, the fragile states and the LDCs are far from achieving the MDGs. And if we want to achieve the MDGs, we have to pay a special focus, a special attention to the LDCs and the fragile states. And 2/3 of the fragile states and the LDCs are in sub-Saharan Africa. Therefore, I think it makes sense really for the development corporations and all the DAC members to pay a special attention to Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. State Secretary Burian, how do you see the achievements and the perspective for Slovak-African cooperation, please?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to briefly respond to your question, why actually it is important for a small country like Slovakia with limited financial resources to be engaged in ODA and in Africa. I believe really this is a very important question, and probably many of our people, many of our public would ask this question, and understanding the value of the ODA for the policymakers and for the public, it's very important also for the success of our endeavor. That's why I welcome this conference, this seminar on ODA, which I believe it's really a very good opportunity to promote the ODA and the meaning of the ODA for our prosperity, for our security, and other implications of the ODA for our foreign policy goals. So I really believe that it's totally right what Commissioner Piebalgs said. We should not consider ODA as charity. It's rather an investment in the future, and we should approach it this way and explain it to our people this way, and then they will better understand. And I will explain why it's an investment, actually. I would say, really, one important fact is that prevention is much cheaper than addressing the consequences of humanitarian catastrophe or a crisis. And we see it really on some developments in Horn of Africa, in Syria, and the influx of refugees. So I believe with much more modest investments, we would be able, of course, I'm simplifying it a little bit. Of course, it's a very complicated situation in Syria or in Horn of Africa, in Somalia. But I would really argue that with the smaller resources of money, when addressed and focused directly in the region, in addressing the problems of poverty, security, and other aspects, we would be able to solve this problem with lesser resources and invest those resources in other areas of cooperation. ODA is also a very important foreign policy tool for us, for a small country, Slovakia, which very much wishes to live in a secure and stable world. And I think, again, here the investment is justified because it's the best way how to promote the foreign policy priorities for a country like Slovakia. And finally, a story of 10 years plus engagement of my country in Africa is showing that really even a smaller country with limited resources can make a huge difference in a country like Kenya and other countries. Through those 10 years, we have been engaged in several African countries, including South Sudan, including Ethiopia, recently in Tunisia and Egypt, but also I'm speaking only about the ODA. Mr. Chowchik mentioned that there are many NGOs without actually a major governmental support working in Uganda and in other countries. So we really need to create quite a precise map where actually we Slovaks are engaged to give us an understanding about the impact of this kind of engagement. But I would also argue that even if we have limited resources, and it was mentioned by previous speakers, when the assistance and development cooperation is focused, when a country is using its value added, and our minister mentioned it in the morning session, that our best value is actually a very important experience from a successful transformation from a recipient of an assistance to a donor country. That's why I believe really we can even better understand the needs and sensitivities of countries receiving the assistance, because we actually went through this process quite recently. And I believe also it's very important to reflect this experience in our ODA project and activities, but also contribute to discussions on shaping the programs of ODA within the European Union and within DAC, where we are recently admitted as a full member. So, on these few facts, I would now move to our engagement in Kenya, and the Honourable Minister presented quite a rich picture of our engagement in Kenya through NGO activities, and I personally was very much surprised to see how much we are working very closely with your people in quite distant areas from Nairobi, implementing or helping actually to implement the priorities of the government of Kenya. And this is very important, what I needed to stress. It's very important to have this partnership. We cannot develop simply for ourselves a development agenda and try to promote it in a country. We need to really rely on the national ownership and really rely on the wisdom of the people of country like Kenya. They know what their problem is. We just need to find a way how to help them, maybe by sharing, again, the experience from our transformation processes. And again, the diversity of the projects is showing that really we have capabilities, we have skillful people in many areas, but we need to also, according to the advice from the OECD, from the EU, narrow the focus on priority areas where really we can provide a value added. So we are focusing on education, providing education especially to most vulnerable, and I was privileged to see a very successful project working with street children, trying to integrate them back to a normal life from an environment of violence. And really, this project works. It provides concrete results. I saw it in a school of 150 children connected to facilities of healthcare. But we also need to think about the next step. And here I'm coming to the area of our private business involvement. And this is something new we just discussed with Commissioner Pierbox. We can really establish good conditions for a child, a young man or girl to get a proper education. We need to plug into this process also vocational education, and then finally create job opportunities. And here I believe the role of the private sector is irreplaceable. That's why I was glad when we extended invitation for our first National Development Forum in Nairobi to private sector, that we found a great and a very enthusiastic response from several of our companies who came with us and demonstrated some of their technologies. And through a discussion, we immediately identified several areas. There was a company dealing with water purification with quite a unique technology of a small water purification pump, which would be able to service a small community, several thousand people community with a drinkable water. they actually use this example, a very dirty water, and the representative of the company was actually through a pipe drinking that water. So this was the most convincing argument. And I believe we can plug in this technology to projects of our NGOs, to providing drinkable water to schools, to hospitals, but also in the future creating partnerships and joint venture in selling and also producing this technology directly on the spot. And I believe here Kenya might be a country where we would not be active only nationally, but also regionally spreading this technology further. And I believe really water, drinkable water is one of the keys for healthy and normal life of people in Africa. And second, we also visited this project where our Academy of Sciences is sterilizing tsetse flies, which cause the sleeping disease. We only heard about the sleeping disease and so on. Somebody says it would be nice to sleep for the whole life, but really this is a major problem for agriculture in Kenya, and also for the people. So by sterilizing the male flies, we are able to eradicate, or to help rather, because now Kenyans are actually implementing the projects to eradicate the tsetse disease, tsetse fly and sleeping disease from a very big part of Kenya, and helping production of food, and by that addressing the food security in the country. So I believe it's not something which is negligible, it's really a big deal. And there were really many other things. So this, to repeat, that when the assistance is focused, and when the value added is efficiently used, even a smaller country with limited resources can do a major difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. State Secretary. Thank you so much. And before opening the opportunity for questions and comments from the audience, I would like to give you the possibility to react to each other, and maybe if you can still mention some more added value examples of Slovakia, or let's widen it to Central Eastern European countries in Africa, because in the first panel it was clear we could provide an added value for Serbia, Montenegro, because we went through somehow a similar experience. Is there a real added value, and where would you see that working in Kenya or South Sudan or other countries among the traditional donors like UK, Japan, Norway, or EU, or with the new coming donors like China or India? If I can widen a bit the question.
Well, thank you very much. I think that what you've heard from all of us is that it's just in the interest of our own common humanity to support each other. And when that support comes from NGOs that actually go to the community levels and deal with people at all levels of society, but those that are really most needy. And, you had the examples that the Honorable Minister Brian gave of the projects that are being implemented in Kenya. You actually realize that you're investing in your own humanity. If we all sit in front of our TVs in wonderful homes that, I know that the growing middle class in Africa has, and so does the middle class in other parts of the world. And we're watching TV, and everything that you're seeing is calamity and catastrophe, and Lampedusa, where 300 people die, within an hour, 1 hour. People that are desperate to live, frankly. I mean, they are desperate to live. And yet, in that process of trying to live, they end up dying. And they die in horrific, conditions. I think it's only then that you realize that every little, effort that you make to make life better in villages, in towns, in poor communities, but it pays. It pays because it allows those people to continue living in their own surroundings, in their own environments, actually where they're the most comfortable. I don't think it's comfortable for anybody to trek thousands of miles across. And Africa is huge, ladies and gentlemen. It's a huge continent of almost 1 billion people today. Trekking millions of miles to get to the shore, get on a boat that you know is not safe. You know all that. And yet you're so desperate that you want to actually go across because you think and you expect that on the other side, people on that side who are humane, who are charitable, who are generous, will be able to afford you the opportunity to live and not die. Not die of drought, of hunger, of starvation, of disease. I think that, that brings home to me, in Nairobi, what, every little effort that is made by an NGO that's sitting in Bratislava, in a small village in Africa means, what it actually means in real terms. So that's what it's about, ladies and gentlemen. It's about actually not just investing in your own future. It's about investing in the future of millions of people who live so far away from you that you don't even know them. But you feel that common humanity with them. And so, you invest in their futures. You don't want to see these pictures of people dying of 300 at the same time in 1 hour. Just imagine. I always sit and imagine, not knowing how to swim and getting on a boat that is not in the best of conditions, right? And transversing thousands of miles of water, knowing very well that it could capsize and you could actually die, but being so desperate that you actually, you'll make that effort anyway to live, because that's what your ultimate goal is, to live. So that's how we in Kenya actually perceive the efforts that you make. And that's why, Minister, at the beginning I said, for us, you're not a small country. You're actually a big country with an even bigger heart. Because the resources that you've put into my country, which is 5.8, million euros, right, since 2004, is by any standard, it's not a huge figure, but the impact that it has had on the ground has been amazing, amazing, and that's why it has to be targeted. But most of all, what you said is important, that it must be part of the national development agenda of countries. It must respond to the priorities that governments have set for themselves, right, but are not able to accomplish because some of these areas are unreachable, right, and can only be reached through the organizations such as yourselves that, go to the community level. So in fact, that effort is complementary to our national development effort, that we are all trying very, very hard to ensure that, our people actually stay at home, do what needs to be done. And what has stuck with me this morning is what the minister said about exporting stability instead of importing instability. Yeah? We want people to stay in their villages, in their homes, to develop those villages. And it's possible to develop those villages because Africa is potentially a very, very rich continent. But we actually need your support to move from the phase where we're in now to the next level, where we can then start doing business that's mutually advantageous for all of us. And as has been said already, Africa is growing. Countries are growing at 10%, at 6%, at 7%. My own country is growing at 5%. In fact, next year it's projected to even move, further than that. So we are growing. We are not stagnant. But at the moment, even with those levels of growth, we still need your support. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to convince you that you must continue putting your trust in us, giving us the support that we need to just move to the next level. Thank you.
I will mention two projects, but I have not seen the SlovakAid projects. Well, and I could be excused because, still have limited capacity. One is actually a project done by your neighbors, Czechs, and it is a project in Addis, working with women cooperative or women group of interests. Basically, women organize themselves, but they need two things. They need a bit access, initial support to money, because they basically provide services or provide some garments or foodstuffs, and basically it's revolving fund, but they need to have some starting and some skills. So really empowering people by initial access to finance and skills, and today as they are managing themselves, they are also political power, because local politicians really start to discuss with them because they are not just one isolated person, but they're a group of women, and that's completely transformative change. And it was free of them to join or not. Some women came, said, we are not interested, they left. But I think that was very important because it's a project of empowering women and at the same time empowering in a way that creates a new value added also in society. Another project is completely different of nature. It is from Kenya, north of Kenya, Lake Turkana. And there is really, you see what the challenge is. It is a region with very unstable water supply, basically. Well, lake is good thing, but the rain is not so often in the past. So basically, whenever there is droughts, people face starvation. So that basically you need really to make investment to provide sufficient capacity for water supply even in the dry season. And I think what I saw, everything was perfect from organization with the exception of one small thing. They have not used the solar cells to get water, but they use diesel. So that costs are high, transport costs are high. And that, I think, is additional more challenge, that providing people supply to resist. And for resilience, you really need also to think of smaller details, how they could, the cheapest way of really to provide supply. And also Lake Turkana definitely demonstrates what you should not do, or at least you should definitely work better. There is a huge factory being constructed for fish processing. Whenever the factory was created, they forgot that electricity supply is not there. So it stands, well, closed, I think with all equipment there, and it's not working, and it costed a lot of money. So first of all, we should have thought, it's not our project, but it is one of partners, that we should not actually do blue elephants. We really need to reflect what is local conditions and what really people could provide for. And electricity was the first thing you really needed to think. What happens instead now? Well, there are trucks, refrigerated trucks coming from Nairobi, and the fish are being brought to Nairobi. So it's people find the way forward, but it's not was the best option. So I believe now with local municipality being more ambitious, we couldn't embark it. So it's completely another project. It is giving the chance people to survive in the environment, not only survive, but live well. And that, I think, where again capital matters, because they will not get money loan from bank, because it's really still not profitable at the beginning. So I think where it's again what it matters. And then two other examples completely from different areas. It is definitely support for stability and state building in Somalia, where we provide support for AMISOM, where Kenyan troops are doing very courageous work really to providing for security support. Because we can't do any development work if there is not security. So it is united again. And it is again important that we do it, because otherwise the forces in Somalia that would like to destroy have an upper hand. Because it's easy to destroy, it's difficult to build up. And I think we could find more and more projects where it makes a difference what Europeans make, and we should learn from what we do good and not do what is wrong. But the most important message is for sustainability. Even if we have sometimes difference of opinion on some details, we really need to adopt our support to the government strategies. Because at the end of the day, to have sustainability, you can guarantee if the country owns it. If you just bring it, and brilliant idea, and it's not continued, well, it has not created value it should create. And I think we have completely new stage where we could make a fast growth if we do it right way. If we don't do it right way, it will anyhow be, but it will be missed opportunity, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner. I would like to open the floor for questions and comments from the audience, and let us take three questions at one time, please. Here, over there, and over there. Please, can you introduce yourself and put the question?
Thank you very much, Maris. My name is Seamus Jefferson. I'm the incoming director of Concord, which is the European Confederation of Relief and Development NGOs, and I'm really delighted to be here early on in my new job to understand a little bit better about the context and dynamics of development assistance of Slovakia and other Central and Eastern European countries. My question is not unnaturally about NGOs, and I think the panel I was very happy to hear the panel speak about the role of NGOs in Slovak assistance in the previous 10 years, and I'd like to ask the panel to reflect a little bit on the future. How do you see the role of Slovak NGOs, of European NGOs in development cooperation into the next 10 years? And certainly in service delivery, but also perhaps in advocacy, in taking part in the policy debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Was another question? Is that Majurova? And then, yeah.
My name is Zuzana Fialova, and I am representing here the Slovak platform of development NGOs. And I want to thanks to Mrs. Minister to actually mention the role of Slovak NGOs in the work in Kenya, because we must say that NGOs are the most massive implementator of SlovakAid within this all 10 years history, because they are here, they are sitting modestly, but I feel my kind of obligation to say that they are those who are doing this hard work from which you mentioned, thank you very much, and from which you can see pictures and books and all the publications here. But I would like to talk about a little bit different thing, because of course Kenya is a success story of SlovakAid, but there is other African country where Slovakia was very active, and this is Republic of South Sudan. And unfortunately, despite our important role our country has, and important and very visible projects our NGOs were implementing there, the projects of fighting malnutrition, doing healthcare and agricultural projects, livelihood projects in this very, very poor country. Unfortunately, this country has been excluded from the list of priority countries of SlovakAid recently, without broader public discussion about this issue. So I would like to ask your opinion about that. And of course, Mr. Burian, Mr. State Secretary, if you can tell us official statement on that problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The third question.
My name is Sandra Cesarini. I'm director of Platforma, the platform of local and regional authorities for development cooperation that Mr. Commissioner knows very well. I wish, first of all, to congratulate for this initiative and for the 10th years of SlovakAid, and wish you all the best for the future also. I'm very happy to be here because I think that at European level, we can, well, first of all, I would like to introduce the difficulty of local and regional government in this period of economic crisis in Europe to get involved in development cooperation, of course. And I must say that this tendency is also very important in the the new member countries since 2004, and so this is a very good reason for this initiative today. In this period of economic crisis, I think we must, Mr. Commissioner, underline that the importance for European Union being the first donor in the world, and I think we must be very proud of that. Now, for the future, we can see this difficult trend, and as all of you mentioned, we think that partnership between private and public sector is going to be important. In the agenda for a change, the European Commission already mentioned this strategy, and I would like, my question is first of all addressed to Mr. Commissioner, I would like to know if there are particular initiatives that the European Union is going to take in the future, and also, of course, it would be very interesting to hear from Mrs. Mohammed, for example, as a recipient countries, how do you see this vision? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can start with the first question, role of the NGOs in development, in advocacy. How would you see it? Mr. Commissioner, maybe could you start?
Well, I believe it's crucial because it's their programs that really provides value for money, because I think NGOs that are closer to the field brings a real experience of the challenges we have, and definitely the advocacy also for governments is crucial to increase funds, because I think it is a link between our partner country and our society. So I always thought that it's extremely important role what is being done by NGOs in this respect, and we will continue to support this also in the next framework, so we will have the program. But that will provide definitely for some particular challenges as well, because we can't deal with a lot of small projects and small core proposals, and that would mean that also NGO sector tries to work closer together between different EU countries, and this event definitely gives this encouragement that it could be achieved.
Mr. Tomasi?
Yes, perhaps a few words on this point. I think it's really an important point. There was three dimensions. The first, it is the role of advocacy for development cooperations. I would like to start by this point because when we look at the result of the peer review of the DAC members, there is a clear link between the level of ODA in the GNP in a country, in a donor country, and the role played by the civil society in the development cooperations. All the DAC members that reach this objective of 1%, 0.7% of GNP allocated to ODA have a strong network of NGOs and an excellent dialogue. Sweden, Norway, Netherlands, Luxembourg, it's clear. So one advice would be, I understand that the Slovak government would like to prepare a new strategic framework for the next years and perhaps a new development act. I think it's really important to have a large consultative process with the civil society. The second dimension, it is of course the role of to act as an implementing agencies. Of course you have different models within the DAC. The northern country, again Sweden, Norway, are using a lot of NGOs to implement the ODA. Some other countries, such as France or Germany, are more using some state agencies. But it seems to me that there is you have to think about the model and the business models that you want to use to improve your efficiency in delivering ODA through NGOs. I understand that currently you have this system of call for proposal on an annual basis with around 100 agreements per year. It's a lot. And taking into account the limited resources that you have for your bilateral cooperations, I think it's important to try perhaps to develop some multi-year programs with the NGOs and to increase the size of the programs. And there is also a question that is really important. It is how to be sure that the program managed by the NGOs will be aligned with the national strategy of the recipient country. This is a key issue. It's possible, but it's important to think about it. And the last dimension for me, very important, it is that the local NGOs have a key role to play in terms of accountability, how to strengthen the accountability of the local government. And I think it should be one of the main objectives of the European NGOs dealing with development. It is to support the local NGOs and to strengthen the capacity of the local NGOs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The second question went on South Sudan and on the continuation of being it country of SlovakAid. I would like also to hear the views of Mrs. Minister and the Commissioner on South Sudan. How do you see importance of this very, very new country in a very special historical moment?
First of all, I wanted to support what the previous speakers said about the role of NGOs, and for us, really, NGO is the most important partner for shaping our programs and activities in countries where Slovak ODA is being provided, and it will continue to be like this for at least next 10, 20 years. I do not see a possibility or even some kind of replacement for it, and there is really a need to nurture and develop this partnership. And as we've heard, the dialogue between the NGO community and the government is very important. As I mentioned, we are using very actively this consultative process with the platform. We believe also the new platform of private sector will become quite an important partner for us. And in this triangle, we are also shaping our future ODA midterm strategy for next 5 years. I wanted to say that the discussion has not been completed yet. We are approaching to more or less clear vision of the future 5 years in the area of ODA. We are trying to narrow down the number of countries to which will provide or continue providing the ODA. It's also based on the recommendation from the EU and OECD, really to have clear focus on rather small group, but really to have a greater impact and bigger efficiency by pooling the resources and directing them to concrete countries. So we are now talking about a dozen of countries which will be considered priority countries for our ODA. There is one group we call program countries. We are trying to keep only 3 program countries. In the past, it used to be South Sudan, it was Kenya, and Afghanistan. For the future, also responding to foreign policy priorities and diversification of our ODA, also to our eastern neighborhood, there will be a new program country, which is Moldova. Concerning South Sudan, as I mentioned, the discussion has not been completed yet. There was a very important meeting between the platform and our Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also based on this communication, but also based on our internal communication, we are evaluating the possibility to keep South Sudan among the countries which will our ODA through form of projects rather than a program country. And one of the problems in continuing in Sudan as a program country is also the absence of the embassy. We just talked about joint programming. The joint programming mostly is organized within the capital, and we felt quite a big deficiency of not having an embassy, and due to limited resources, we are not preparing the opening of the embassy there. But once again, we understand the necessity to continue supporting our NGOs in South Sudan, doing a great job there in the area of healthcare, providing nutrition and so on. We believe this must continue. We need to find a way how to support them, but rather I see a place of South Sudan as a project country rather than program country.
Thank you. Thank you very much. On the role of NGOs in the future, I think what is being discussed here about having a strategic framework, wide consultations, to just ensure that there is also broader ownership. But what I would also request is that you form partnerships with the local NGOs in our countries, because they need, some capacity development. They also need some, accountability, capacity, building support given to them by the NGOs in the north. So, in the future, I think that's what really will count on how sustainable these programs will be, by how many NGOs, local NGOs, understand them and can be held accountable. I'll tell you about one other program in Kenya. One Slovak doctor, who actually is looking after about 40,000 people. Isn't that amazing? About 40,000 people. And what she has done is she's been training local capacity to just make sure that in the event, and keeping wonderful records, really, make sure that in the event that she has to move on, maybe to another health clinic in another part of the country, that there will be enough support to continue the work that she has begun. And so that's what the future must look like, moving from one place to another place. But as you move, you leave behind a support team that is trained to carry on the work that you began, so that that work does not, disappear. So I think that would be, one way of moving into the future. On South Sudan. South Sudan is only 2 years old. Just 2 years old. I was there for the celebration of their second independence 2 months ago, I think it was. And when I went there, I had a meeting, because we have about 30,000 Kenyans who live in South Sudan, and mainly in Juba, actually. And I had a meeting with them, and we started having discussions, and they told me, look, we have a problem. And so what's the problem? The problem is that so many of us are dying every few months, and we're taking too many bodies back home. And so we're thinking, is this really useful? Because we're here to help, to support, and to also do business. But if we are all, going to die by coming to support them, then we may have to, move back. And I said, no, please don't move away, because if this percentage of you Kenyans are dying here in South Sudan, can you just imagine how many South Sudanese are dying from the same ailments, from typhoid, from malaria? So how can you leave them? How can you just abandon that? We should, the rest of us, look for ways in which we can support you. Make sure maybe that we have visiting doctors coming in, the same way that the Slovak doctors came to Nairobi to perform surgery. That same way, maybe form a partnership between Slovak doctors and Kenyan doctors to go into South Sudan every 3 months, leave a supply of malaria and typhoid medicine, right? Carry out some clinics, there. I said, but you can't live. Let's find ways of making sure that you stay, that you survive, but that we also help the South Sudanese. South Sudan is only 2 years old, and it has many, many, many challenges. We, as Kenya, are not going to abandon them. We must support them. They're our neighbors. The same story of either you export stability or you import instability, right? So we must all, Commissioner, please, support South Sudan. And it's too young now to understand conditionalities. So if there's support that's given to them, it must be unconditional. It cannot be based on anything else except that support. There will come a time when you can say, okay, fine, I'm giving you support, this is what I want in return. You know, but really we have to understand that it's a very young baby. It's still learning to crawl. And it needs everybody. It needs us, it needs you, it needs the Commission to make sure that it can move on. So really it's a plea from me for South Sudan, because I feel very strongly Kenya has invested a lot in South Sudan in terms of just energy, in terms of the CPA, the Comprehensive Peace Agreement. We're still supporting it. The other day we were trying to talk to them to make sure that the links and the discussions and the dialogue between the North and the South do not break. So, we need your support so that we can maintain, that kind of, help to South Sudan. On private sector partnerships, I think I'll allow the Commissioner to discuss that. He's probably much more able to do that. Thank you.
Well, on South Sudan, if I would be asked to name just one country where support is needed, I would, as Cabinet Secretary, say it's South Sudan, because it's a new country. It really established out of really extreme poverty, extreme neglect, and I believe that all humanitarian and all development assistance is needed. If somebody doubts it, just need to visit hospital in Juba. Then you see what are the needs, and that is a central hospital. It's not about other parts of the world. Saying said this, I would say in 2 years, country made remarkable also progress, because expectations, they are doing better than expectations. But we have recently approved a budget support program of 80 million, because we have two tranches. One is 85 million that we use as a project, and 200 we can use even supported part of the government for providing healthcare and education. And there will be so fragile countries of New Deal Compact. The program will be approved on 3rd of December, and I am fully convinced it. And they manage also a relationship with IMF. So it is not so easy, because it allows that public finance management is rather decent. And it's with a lot of internal political storms and with very difficult relations with the North. And I appreciate what Kenya is doing really to facilitating this process. It's again, it could be better, but it could be worse. So what else has been achieved is also not so bad, because the starting point was very particular. So we have still at this stage overall program of 285 million euro, and we can use part of the money through the government. So that means we strengthen the government, legitimate government of this country, and I believe it is the right thing to do. Some provinces are more challenging than the others, but there have been substantial change in Juba. I have visited Juba a couple of times, and each time it's better. So it's each time you see things are better, cleaner. So the country is evolving, but without support it will be a very, very delicate process, and I think everybody is needed, and I'm very glad that SlovakAid will continue to support projects there, because you can do whatever. People really are needed support. On the private sector involvement, well, we are considering a couple of options. I think that one of them is definitely trying to provide the financial vehicles for mitigating investment risks, because I think what we basically would like very much, that small and medium-sized enterprises are coming to invest, not only big ones that are going for commodity, because that does not leave so many jobs in the country. It does something good. It's not saying, but I think that is one direction it is. Second is definitely trying to develop the projects that could be implemented in a public-private partnership. So the projects that are prepared or for infrastructure or for, human development in this respect. And third is definitely promoting also local municipalities. We work with UCLG Africa very closely. We have opened some avenues really trying to use this potential of local municipalities that in Africa I think has even more powers or influence compared with Europe, at least with my country, because it's community-based. Very much community thinking is still there. It's not just formal organization, but it's really some power. So we believe that using this instrument, we could also provide by far more, a lot of good with relatively small investment, mobilizing quite an important impact on the ground.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, very much. Unfortunately, our time for panel 2 expired. We have to close the session. I would really thank very much to our distinguished panelists, to Mr. Peter Burian, State Secretary and host of this event. Thank you very much. And Mr. Serge Tomasi from OECD Directorate. Thank you very much. Commissioner Andris Piebalgs for coming here. Thank you. And Amina Mohamed, Kenyan Minister. Asante sana umekuwa wakati mwema kuwa pamoja nawe. It was really nice to have you here, all you being with us. Thank you. And for all participants of the conference, lunch is waiting for us downstairs. And then after lunch, the conference will go ahead according to the schedule. Thank you very much. And dobrú chuť k obedu. Enjoy the lunch.